was in my early 20s. I went out to a nightclub for my friend's birthday. The night was bad from the start. My friend disappeared on me early in the piss, leaving me with some of my male friends who I'd only just met. I didn't have a boyfriend, so I felt uneasy being left with these guys that I didn't even know. After some time hanging out with them, I noticed they were both acting very strange. I wasn't sure why. So I went looking for her and still couldn't find her. The music was too loud for us to hear each other on the phone, and our messages to each other became a wild goose chase. I started to think she was purposely stalking me around, so I ended up deciding to leave. I texted her to let her know. I went outside to hail a taxi. The cab driver promptly arrived at the club entrance. I hopped in, feeling pretty crap about the night I had. I felt very uncomfortable with this driver. As soon as I got in, I just got bad vibes for some reason. I chalked it up to my own disappointment of how the night panned out, and I needed to get home, so I brushed this feeling aside and gave my address. Sitting in the front seat in silence, I just wanted to hurry up and get home. He was using GPS, so I didn't need to give directions. He made some small talk like, "How was your night? Did you have fun?" It was weirding me out because it was as if he knew I had a horrible time and was mocking me. I replied, "It was alright," not wanting to talk about it. The next thing I remember is waking up in the cab, still miles away from home and not too far from the nightclub, and the bridge that wasn't on the road back. I looked at the meter, it was already up to $50. This fare should have got me home already. I was angry he took advantage of the fact that I dozed off. I queried this and told the driver he'll have to stop the meter, as all I have is $50 and that should have been enough to cover my fare. You could cut the tension with a knife. He was livid. As I confronted him, he stopped the meter and said, "Well, I pull over so you can get out of here." I told him he cannot pull over on this bridge. It doesn't have a service lane, it's illegal to stop on. That particular bridge has a barrier due to the high number of suicides. I asked why he even went this way. He said he followed the GPS. I expressed how unfair this was and that I should have been home by now. He continued driving. We didn't speak for the remainder of the trip. I could tell he was furious, and to be honest, so was I. When he arrived at my house, he had this evil look in his eyes. As we pulled up, I handed over my debit card to pay. He glared at me as I snatched the card from my hand. Then I was struck with a horrifying thought. This man now has a full name and address. Nervously, I glanced over at his cab ID on the dashboard. To my surprise, the picture barely resembled the man I was sitting next to. I suddenly became extremely scared. As some sort of insurance, I decided to ask him to see his ID, since he has my name and address. I must admit, this definitely wasn't the smartest idea I've had. I'll never forget the evil look in his eyes as he said, "You don't know who I am. I'll show you who I am." I slammed the gas. I went into full panic, and as he went to swerve around the corner, speeding away from my place, I opened the car door ready to roll. Luckily, he had to slow down or the door would have hit a pole. I jumped out and bolted back to my house in a state of sheer terror. I don't know what he had planned for me, but it certainly wasn't good. He drove away and I went in and called the police crying. They did nothing, but I kept his cab number written down in my wallet just in case. Many years have passed since that horrible night. I've tried to put it behind me and have avoided cabs ever since. The reason I decided to share this story is because the other day, I was walking in the city, and what I saw brought me right back to the night. I pulled out the crinkled paper that I've carried with me all these years. It was him. He's still out there driving cabs. I'm sharing this warning to anyone who will listen. Be careful when you get into a taxi or Uber. You never know whose car you're getting into. I'm nearly out of college now, about a week away from my graduation. My degree has lasted me 4 years, and due to my father's death 2 years ago, I've paid for half out of my own pocket. Now, living in Detroit, jobs are hard to come by. I was damn near dropping out to join the army, just to be able to leave before a buddy of mine recommended driving for Uber. I do it on weekends. You get an audible every now and again, but it's this in cash. He said to me after a lecture one day, already owned an electric car, an old 2009 Toyota Prius, so fuel wouldn't be a massive issue. Besides, I wasn't still an extroverted person, so I loved meeting new people, so I started driving. I enjoyed it for the most part. What my body had said was not too far off the truth. Oh shit. I'd be lying if I said I'd recommended it, especially if you live in Detroit. There have been times where I've been so scared. I've had to get new seats, let alone new pants. Since I'm about to end my show career working for Uber, I figured I'd compile all the memorable moments I've had into a piece of writing. So, yeah, here you are. I did a pickup once for a slightly older-looking dude from a nightclub. He got into the back seat with a significantly younger woman who seemed either really drunk or really high. I couldn't quite tell, but I could smell liquor and weed, so really it could have been either, if not both. The guy on the other hand seemed pretty sober. Naturally, this sent off massive alarm clocks in my head, but I decided not to ask questions and just to drive them to where they wanted to go. Neither of them said anything for a while, and because it was so late at night, I wasn't really feeling a conversation, so I didn't say much either. I kept looking back at this dude for a while though. Something about him just wasn't right. He was older than most of my clients, around 42-45, with slicked back dark grey hair and brown eyes. No facial hair either, save a small tuft on his chin. The most notable part was his teeth. Whenever he smiled, which it was for most of the trip, I got a glimpse in the rearview mirror. They were cooked to the point of looking jumbled, like they were just dropped into his mouth at any odd angle. Most of all though, they were sharp, like seriously sharp. They looked like they came out of some sort of carnivore, not a human. This really gave me the creeps. The worst part was yet to come. When we finally arrived at his destination, it wasn't a house. Well, it hadn't been a house for years. I'm sure you have all seen the photos of abandoned houses on abandoned streets in Detroit. And this house looked just like that. Nevertheless, I pulled up to the curve. Are you sure this is the right address, sir? I asked, while checking my phone to make sure I had gotten it right. No response. Sir? I asked again, still looking down. No response. Finally, I looked up into the mirror to see nothing. No one was in the back seat. Not the girl or the man. I checked, and the doors were still locked. I wouldn't normally, but when driving around certain areas, you need to lock the door. How the fuck could they have gotten out if the doors were still locked? Also, my hearing is pretty good condition. I never even listened to loud music, so I would have heard them leaving. Also, looking outside the windows, I didn't see anyone walking. It was a real job. I had been paid for the trip, so it's not like I had imagined the things somehow. To this day, I have no idea. In Detroit, a lot of people go missing, and also cats. It just so happens that I transported a man and a kid who I thought was his son out into the middle of nowhere, just for the dude to kill the kid and burn the body. At least, that's what the police told me after rounds of questions. You see, after I had finished that trip, I called it a day and went to the local corner store on the way home to pick some things. And who do I see on my milk carton? None other than that same fucking kid. I called the police and went from there. They never found the guy, but have linked him to 3 other missing children in the area. This one still messes with me. Here's one that more what the fuck than particularly creepy. I picked up this guy once, from a small town a little ways out of downtown. He was tall, at least 6'4", and quite lanky too. I was in a good mood that day, so I tried to make a bit of a conversation. I like talking with my passengers. As I said before, I enjoy meeting new people. Anyway, this guy says almost nothing, like 1-word responses to every single question. Eventually, we get to his destination, another small house about 10 minutes drive from the pickup point. Says goodbye and everything seems normal. I drive off, and I must have made it to around 30 miles per hour when I hear a knock on the window. It's the same guy, running. He motions to pull over, which I do. In a shock, I roll down the window to ask him what's up. Sorry, I left my phone in the backseat. No context to the fact that he just ran faster than anyone ever. Initially, I thought my speed dial was fucked, but I had it checked, it was fine. I always save the best to last, so here's the one that keeps me up at night. I pick up this woman just outside of downtown around midnight. She hops in and starts to berate me, asking me why I took so long. Taken aback, I apologize. She immediately starts to break down and cry, sobbing and just tells me to drive. The trip is a long one, half an hour to the airport. Along the way, she starts to talk several times, before just going back to cry. Eventually, she spits it out. He's coming after me. That's all she said. I asked her if she needed me to call the police. She said they wouldn't do anything for her. He's gonna take me away with him. She blurred out between quiet sobs. She went on to say other things, but they were inaudible mumbles. The last thing she said before I had to drop her off was, "The name Rogue, and it's getting close." That was all the motivation it took for me to get her out and for me to speed off as fast as my shitty little Prius could do. The name Rogue, for those of you who don't know, is what I once believed to be another bullshit fairy tale about a little demon that roams the streets of Detroit, causing all the bad things to happen for the city and dragging people back to wherever he came from. Not being a superstitious person, I never believed in it. Now I do. Why? Because when I checked the news later that day, the woman I had picked up was found dead. Not too strange, but definitely creepy that they found her body. The part that got me was the fact that police said that she was dead for at least a month before they found her. If you're from Detroit, or if you just have any information on the name Rogue, I'd love to hear it. Because the last sighting of it was back in 1976. But I know it's still around.